Welcome to the Raw Spotlight podcast, where we feature inspiring leaders in the B2B space and share their unique stories. Let's get started with the show.
Today, we're diving into the branding and digital strategy behind a leading HVAC accessories manufacturer, expanding into the North American market. We'll discuss how Ready Artwork supported their online transformation to help capture a new customer base. Welcome to the Raw Spotlight, where we explore leadership, entrepreneurship, and digital marketing. I'm Emily Au, co-founder of Ready Artwork, joined by my business partner, Victor Huynh. In this series, we'll share insights on growing a business, the evolution of digital marketing, and key strategies for success. Past episodes include our look into Metro Micro Initiative, where we explore the role of visual identity and customer experience in public transportation. So get comfortable, settle in, and be ready to be inspired. Before we start, I have a sponsor message. This episode is brought to you by Ready Artwork, a website-first digital marketing agency focused on long-term growth. Our proven 7-step website blueprint is the heart of everything we do, designed to build high-performing lead-generating websites. If you want a full breakdown, check out our episode on the 7-step blueprint and visit readyartwork.com to learn more. Joining me, as always, is my co-host and business partner, Victor Huynh. From our garage startup days to leading one of LA's top website and digital marketing agencies, Victor has been the forefront of transforming businesses through smart branding, web design, and digital strategy. We had a great conversation last week, and I'm excited to continue it today. So, Victor, welcome back, and let's dive in.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone, back to the show. Thanks for tuning in.
All right. So earlier I mentioned we are going to be talking about a client of ours as a case study, and they're in the HVAC manufacturing space. How did they initially approach Ready Artwork for their digital rebrand?
How did they approach us? It's very I would say a high percentage of our good clients are referrals, and in this case, it was a client that was working at another client's company, right? They left on good terms, so she had really good experience working with Ready Artwork, and the other client's still a client. So, and she was tasked to bring a brand new brand to the market, and there were a lot of things that she needed done, and based on her experience working with us, she thought we might be a good partner to help her kind of launch a brand new brand. It's a publicly traded company in Japan, and entering the North American market. So definitely not a small project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What was their key business goals driving their push into the North American market?
Well, I think they were already in the market. It's just that they weren't physically saying, hey, we have a North American branch, right? Mm-hmm. So they were exporting to some distributors already. And I think they had a very unique product. Them being a publicly traded company in Japan, obviously they're already a household name for many, many years, right? Decades. But it's not something that is commonly found here. Right. And so they knew that there was a market because people were buying it, but it wasn't really popular yet. Mm-hmm. So I think that was the reason why they saw huge potential in terms of establishing a presence here, establishing operations here. And that's what drove it.
Yeah. So this client went through the 7-step website blueprint with us, and we guided them through the process. Yeah. Can you describe the overall approach behind this website, digital redesign and strategy?
Sure. I think I guess I'll go back to the initial conversation, right? The client herself that worked with us, she has a marketing manager. And so the marketing manager reached out to me, and at first I couldn't connect the dots. I was like, oh, okay, it's a lead that came in through our website. And the marketing manager said, hey, we need SEO. I'm doing some SEO myself. But I'm more of a generalist. I do social media. I do SEO, I do, coordinating the branding stuff. I do a little bit of everything. So I'm by no means an SEO expert, right? She started a conversation there and says, well, I'm tasked to drive X amount of traffic to the website, and we've been struggling hitting that goal.
Mm-hmm.
So the only KPI that she was basing off of was traffic X to the website, right? Mm-hmm. And immediately I was like, okay, so who are you driving? This is a B2B type of a website, so it's not always about huge volumes of traffic, right? Because B2B, you need to be a lot more precise on who you're attracting. So I would settle for 500 really qualified traffic, people to my website over 5,000 people that are not my ideal customers, right? And users whatsoever. So immediately I recognized that there was, the goals were a little bit off. And then as we dove into it a little bit more, they were telling me like, hey, we don't have full access to our website because, our parent company had hired an agency to build a custom website, and everything was custom coded. Mm-hmm. It was on WordPress, but it was all custom coded. So for those of you that don't know, you think WordPress out of the box, you should be able to just log in and update things. Mm-hmm. Actually, it doesn't work that way depending on how it's built, right? So not only you have to build a front end, UI, UX, and everything needs to work, it needs to be connected properly to the back end. So when it's not connected, you can go into the back end, you can update, but if it's not linking, say, update this field to that field on the front end on the homepage, for example, this text box. If those aren't set up properly, they will not connect. That your message, when your directions and your commands on the back end are not going to translate to the front end. So it turns out everything that they want to update, they had to go through the agency for every little thing, which is not ideal because not only is it it's not cost effective, but even if cost isn't an issue, it's time. If I just need to update, like, oh, there was a typo on the product and I want to update it. Right. Now I have to put in a ticket. I have to wait hours, if not days, to get that update, right? Whereas, if I have an in-house marketing person, they can just go in and update that error.
Right.
So that was a big challenge. And then the other challenge was, okay, so for us to do SEO, we need your Google Analytics, we need your tag managers, we need your, what's the other one? I keep forgetting. Your
Search Console?
Your Google Search Console, right? So you need access to all their back end data pieces to be able to analyze, to be able to even start doing SEO. And I need your back end to your WordPress. I need all these things, right? And that was immediately the challenge. And I was like, okay, well, let's solve those before I even quote you or even talk about strategy or plan, right? I think we're stuck at step one. And she's like, oh, okay, thank you. And I said, you need to solve your website problem first. You have a website problem. You can't SEO a website that has a website problem. Mm-hmm. So, we said, okay. And we got off the call and I didn't hear back for a couple of weeks. Right. And then surprisingly, it's not surprising, but it happens, right? Conversation, people don't feel good about it and they just kind of disappear. Well, a couple of weeks later, she came back and she go, okay, well, Victor, I thought about, we had a lot of discussions about what we talked about internally. And I actually spoke to other agencies as well. And everyone was eager to throw me a quote for SEO, couple $1,000s a month for SEO and we'll take care of everything, magically. Right. And she's all like, well, it didn't make sense. I kept thinking about it. Like, how are they going to SEO when the website's a mess and they don't have full access and it's going to be logistically challenging? If the SEO team requests a change, I have to grab that and I need to send it to the agency. Agency is going to make those changes and it's just going to be a headache. Mm-hmm. And so they thought it over and they re-strategized. Okay, well, let's come back and let's solve the website problem. Mm-hmm. You made a good point. Let's solve that problem together. And that's when, okay, so if we're going to tackle this properly, then let's go through our website blueprint, right? Before I give you a quote on what you need to build and how much it's going to cost, let's go through our blueprint and figure out what it is that you need on your website, right? So that's why we have our 7-step process, right? Where we go through discovery, we interview, we understand the marketplace, we understand competitors, we set real KPIs and goals, right? We understand the user journey, the buyer's journey, right? Not only users, but the buyers as well. What is your sales process? And we go in there and we develop a site map. Okay, what are all the pages that you need, right? Let's list them all out. Take an inventory of everything, right? So if you think about a site map, think of a bunch of boxes that are connected, and each box represents a page. So homepage, where does the homepage link to? Where does your product page link to? Brands page link to? And it becomes this, you see a bird's eye view of your entire website, right? Rather than this random mystery. And then on top of that, how do we understand on key pages what people are going to see? Does the logic make sense? Does it make sense to see just a product, or are we going to have YouTube videos? Are we going to have different things that really drive to give the customer enough information for them to go, I need a quote, or I'm interested in this, or if I'm looking for a distributor, where do I go, right? So we understand the flow of everything, and that gave them clarity. And then from there, we were able to understand, okay, what is it going to cost to build the site out, right? And or what is your budget, and how do we back that into what you need to build? So it's a balance between the two, right? Obviously, most people don't have unlimited budgets, but at the same time, you have to understand what you're working with, right? You can't ask for a 1,000 product, 100-page, 300-page website, and I have $10,000. Right? It's just not going to happen. So there's got to be compromise somewhere, right? So how do you figure that out? And what tech stacks, which plugins are you going to be using? Where are you going to connect to? All those things are kind of laid out in our discovery process. Through that, then we understand how to build a proper website. So that was what we did. Yeah, and it worked out beautifully. We had a game plan, and the good thing about our discovery is that it gives clients a way to experience the Ready Artwork customer experience, right? Our meetings, our people, how we approach problem solving, and then at the end of it, we deliver a game plan to them, the blueprint, and they decide, right? They decide, hey, do I want to proceed and have Ready Artwork build it? Or do I take this report and I try to build it myself, or I go hire someone else to do it, right? It's theirs. That's why it's a paid process, right? It makes it very transparent. Like, I'm paying for this. This is mine, but it's also my decision whether I want to continue working Ready Artwork or not, right? And so thankfully, we did a good enough job where they said, you know what, I want to proceed with the website. Let's put it in, right? So we already understand the budget. We already understand the rough timeline. How many weeks or months it's going to take to build, and what do I need to get this project going? And so it was a pretty smooth transition into the actual build itself.
Right. I was part of this project as well, Victor, and I thought it was very helpful going through the website blueprint with the client. And through that, I know we discovered, using our customer journey workshop, we discovered different audiences that they actually work with. You want to elaborate and expand on that a little bit, where, during customer journey, we discover and be able to guide our client a little bit more in that decision-making process?
Yeah, so especially in B2B, there's never just one customer and one customer journey, right? So those are two different things. So your ideal customers, a lot of times in B2B, for this client, for example, you had people that wanted to buy the products, like contractors, and depending on their size and volume and location, right? We might not be able to sell to them directly, or even, especially in this case, there were certain product lines that were kind of locked in with certain distributors already. So if they were looking for a certain product, we had to send them to this distributor. If they were not looking for this product, we can sell them directly if the volume was there, or we can send them to a new distributor right? So even within that themselves, the customer journey kind of splintered off based on, let's say, contractors for a job. And let's say if there was a distributor that was interested in carrying a product, right? What is their journey like? Who do they talk to? Where are they located? And it goes to a specific person, it goes into the customer's backend ticketing system and goes to the right salesperson or the account manager that's kind of managing that region or that area or that product even, right? And then, and obviously if you have, if you're an organization that needs recruiting or needs other things, then, that's another, very typical, target audience, right? So it's usually splintered off, and from there, each customer type has a certain journey depending on the customer and the company and organization's setup. So it's never as easy as, hey, let's just a beeline from homepage to product to contact to lead, right? It rarely happens that way. So you have to understand the customer journey and the customer, what they're thinking about. Do they need to learn more about the company? Do they need to know more about where the product's coming from? Who has used it? What did they say about it? Are there testimonials? Are there case studies, right? Before they even consider submitting a form, maybe they want to sign up to a newsletter first, right? Maybe they want to hear how this company behaves and how it, so for this one, this client, they knew when you sign up for a newsletter, then they send out case studies like, hey, we did this school for HVAC. We did, our products were involved in this project, right? And then how does it look? And they, honestly, they did a good job because they have high quality videos that make our job a lot easier.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the other challenge, right? So, and then once they see more of this, that this project really, really reminds me of the one I'm working on right now. So they might be a good fit, right? So before they even, reach out. So there's a lot of things that go through the customers' minds. They say most people are already pretty sold on your product and service by the time they already reached out, right? So a lot of social proof, a lot of things have to go into that.
Right. Yeah, I think earlier you mentioned clarity. So the blueprint definitely gave the client a lot of clarity because, again, the customer journey demonstrates to our client that what happens before your potential client visit your site, and then they come to visit your site. What are some of the pages they could possibly be visiting? There could be many touch points. It could be a span of a day, couple of days, couple of months, in some industries, a couple of years. And then from there, what do they do afterwards, right? So I think a lot of people don't take a look at the pre-website visit and post-website visit.
Right. I mean, we always talk about the funnel, right? And where the customer is on the funnel. Like, are they just discovering the product? Are they just discovering the brand? After that, what are some of the touch points that are going to get them buy-in before they even get down to bottom of the funnel? So a lot of consultations that I have where customers are just kind of thinking about these things, they're usually just thinking about bottom of the funnel, right? Like, well, I run ads directly to get customers to inquire and to sign up, but what happens before that? Even if you have an ad, if they don't know who you are, they don't understand the brand, they don't understand the product, they're not going to convert. So they don't realize that a lot of this stuff is already happening, especially the brands that have been around for a long time. Like they've been to trade shows, all those is all building up the top of funnel, mid funnel pieces. That's why they're even having any success at the bottom of the funnel. But if they're not nurturing it in their digital experience, then that's a big piece left on the table.
Yeah, of course. So, Victor, what feedback did the client share after the launch?
This was a big website, and I check in. I want to make sure customers are happy. So everything so far has been very positive. There are some bugs as there are in big projects, but the feedback from the client was your team is very proactive, on top of everything that comes up, right, during the debugging process. So, as with any big complicated project, there will be, little bugs here and there, or like, even sometimes they're not even bugs. Sometimes they're more like preferences. Like, I want this to behave this way, but we kind of, oh, well, it's not behaving exactly how I want it to be. So even the after launch, we have a debugging process where we kind of sort through everything, make sure that all the deliverables are, what we promised are kind of delivered to the client satisfaction. As we move forward and, start planning out, the SEO process and how to start improving, right? So you have to have a good base before you start doing SEO. Right. And that's ideal. And not everyone has that kind of luxury, right? Some people might be like, and that's all I have. What can I do? And so you kind of, but this client is on the right path. They did everything the right way. They went through discovery. They built the website. Next phase is really, okay, how do I start getting into SEO, and how do I win AI, right? This AI game that's on everyone's minds in the industry.
Yeah. Last question for me. What advice would you give to other international brands looking to enter North American market through digital channels?
What advice for international? I would say number one is you need to have a solid team on the ground, right? Not only sales. I think a lot of times sales is really important, right? Obviously, I'm a little biased too. I'm on the sales side of things, but aside from sales, you have to have a very competent marketing head, a lead, if you will, right? Not like for me, when I started, I was just a graphic designer out of college, and I was kind of thrown into position to lead the marketing efforts and become the marketing manager. I didn't know. I was like this kid. Don't do that, right? But I had to figure it out, and step by step, right? If you're able to find a talented, experienced marketing professional, and they don't have to be good at everything, right? They just need to know how to problem solve and understand marketing. I think that would be half the battle, right? You need your sales, but you also need a marketing person, right? I'm not going to get into like finances and all these other pieces that are required. But I would say from a digital marketing standpoint, even if you hire someone like us, an agency, you need to have a very competent person on the inside that kind of works with your agency partner. You can't expect a salesperson to kind of run all that with an agency.
Agree. I think this case study for this client that we're talking about, they have a really strong marketing lead. She also has help as well, within their team. They run a very lean team, but they're pretty efficient and strong, and then we're able to come in to amplify their efforts. Yeah.
You don't need a large marketing team.
Yeah.
Right. That's not what I'm advocating for. I think it's okay running a lean team, but you need to have someone that has a good head on their shoulders and is able to kind of drive the ship, if you will, the marketing ship, right? And I would advise against going out and hiring a bunch of marketing people full-time in-house, because you don't know what you're getting. If you're an international brand, it could turn out to be a disaster if you hire the wrong people. So definitely not going out and hiring a full-blown marketing department, but run lean, bring in partners and experts in different areas, and you can apply that across the org, right? But have a strong core team.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, Victor, thanks for sharing. That's a wrap for today's episode of the Raw Spotlight. We hope this case study gave you deeper understanding of how thoughtful design strategy can help manufacturers make an impactful entrance into new markets. If you found this episode valuable, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone in your network. Victor, if listeners want to connect with us, how do they reach out to you?
LinkedIn. So I'm very active on LinkedIn. Looked up Victor Huynh, and I have my marketing hat on, so you can recognize me on LinkedIn. Please mention that you heard you found me on the podcast, so I know it's not spam, because we get a bunch of spam trying to help me with marketing. And if you're interested in like looking at some random stuff that's not always about marketing, I'm also active on Instagram, Facebook. I've been trying to get more active on TikTok, but TikTok is more like just personal hobby stuff, you know, all my pets and animals and stuff. But my IG is a little bit of a mix of everything. If it's purely professional, LinkedIn is the best place. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. I'm Emily Yao, and this is the Raw Spotlight. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Raw Spotlight podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.